Welcome to the virtual programming of the Ismaili Jamatkhana and Center. Under the guidance of His Highness the Aga Khan, who is the 49th hereditary Imam of the Ismaili Muslims and a direct descendant of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Ismaili Jamatkhana and Center serve as a place of gathering, learning, and exchange. In addition to providing prayer and assembly space for Shia Ismaili Muslims, the center is also a space for fostering an appreciation of pluralism and for enhancing relationships among faith communities, government, and civil society. In addressing the Jody D lecture at Harvard University in 2015, His Highness the Aga Khan said, "For a very long time, as you know, the term most often used in describing the search for human understanding was the word tolerance. In recent years, our vocabulary in discussing this subject has evolved. One word that we have come to use more often in this regard is the word pluralism, and the other word is cosmopolitan. A pluralist cosmopolitan society is a society which not only accepts difference but actively seeks to understand it and to learn from it. What this means, perhaps above all else, is a readiness to participate in a true dialogue with diversity, not only in our personal relationships, but in institutional and international relationships also. But that takes work and it takes patience. Above all, it implies a readiness to listen. End of quote. The ethos of today's program captures His Highness's vision of dialogue and understanding through the medium of art and culture from diverse geographical and linguistic traditions. In that spirit, we are excited to welcome you to the opening program of Abraham Out of One Many, a beautiful and stirring and inspirational exhibit that features artwork from three talented artists from Jewish, Christian, and Muslim faith traditions about living harmoniously in today's world. We will be hearing from the organizing curator and the participating artists from this timely exhibition focused on their common patriarch, Abraham, and about what motivated them to create this art exhibition about welcoming the stranger and embracing the other. We are delighted to hear first from the exhibition's curator, the Right Reverend Paul Gordon Chandler, and then to be introduced to the three participating artists from the Abrahamic religious traditions. And then we will all experience the exhibit virtually through a docent led tour by Reverend Gregory Henn. This unique exhibition is the brainchild of the Right Reverend Paul Gordon Chandler. He's the bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Wyoming. He grew up in Senegal, West Africa, and has lived and worked extensively around the world in senior leadership roles within both humanitarian organizations and the Episcopal Church. He's the founding president of Caravan, which he founded while living in Cairo, Egypt. Caravan is an international arts NGO nonprofit founded by Bishop Paul Gordon Chandler that is recognized as a leader in using the arts to a global quest for a more harmonious future, both with each other and with the earth. The Reverend Gregory Henn is the Director of Interfaith Relations and Education at Interfaith Ministry for Greater Houston, Houston's oldest interfaith service organization. An ordained Presbyterian minister with extensive experience in pastoral ministry and teaching at the secondary and university level, he holds degrees from Georgetown University and Harvard Divinity School. With that, I present to you the Right Reverend Chandler. Thank you.
Thank you, Almas. There's a sense that every day this unique exhibition titled Abraham Out of One Many becomes all the more relevant and timely. I think of all that's going on right now and how many in the West, for example, are perceiving Islam because of the recent takeover of the Taliban in Afghanistan. This particular exhibition originated out of an observance of the rise of anti-Semitism and the increasing anti-Muslim sentiment in the West, and in particular in North America. And in a more general sense, Abraham Out of One Many is really an artistic response to today's climate of increasing prejudice, stereotyping, discrimination, and even misrepresentation. And of course, all of this has often led to a dehumanizing of the other, whether in worldviews or words or actions, and whether related to color or faith or ethnicity, etc. And I believe all of this needs to be counteracted by creative initiatives that are based on our similarities and what we all hold in common. And so this exhibition really, in effect, is a creative demonstration of dialogue. One of the things this exhibition does is it serves to remind us that in the midst of all the tensions and even polarization that exist, that Muslims, Christians, and Jews all have the same family heritage through our mutual ancestor, Abraham, or Ibrahim in Arabic, or Avraham in Hebrew. Hence, they are all considered Abrahamic faiths, all proud descendants of this one whom today we would say is an Iraqi. And the followers of each of these three faith traditions, of course, are referred to as children of Abraham. And so this exhibition is, in effect, when you think about it, a family reunion. Abraham is without doubt one of the most unifying figures in the midst of today's discord and strife, and especially so as these three faith traditions all see the figure of Abraham as a model of welcoming the stranger and embracing the other. So in this sense, Abraham can serve as really an excellent guide for all of us, regardless of what cultural, religious, or even non-religious or ethnic background we come from. And the exhibition focuses in on what we can learn from Abraham's story about living together more harmoniously. The title of the exhibition, Abraham Out of One Many, plays off of that well-known Latin motto, which is actually on the U.S. presidential seal, E pluribus unum, out of many one. The exhibition premiered its global tour in Rome, Italy in May of 2019. It was then showcased in Paris, France, and then in Edinburgh, Scotland. And then it began its U.S. tour, which it currently is on. As this exhibition travels, it takes with it the fundamental message of intercultural and interreligious harmony, focusing on how we can live and work together harmoniously to jointly enhance our respective communities. And the foundation to this exhibition is very much the belief that art is a universal language that has the ability to dissolve the differences that divide us. And we have found that art can be one of the most effective mediums to enhance understanding, to bring about respect, to enable sharing, and deepen friendships between those of different faiths and cultures. Because when you think about it, art helps us put ourselves in the other's shoes. And in this sense, looking through an artistic lens at Abraham's life, this exhibition has the primary objective of helping us see the other with fresh eyes, celebrating the diversity of human expression, and also asserting the common priorities that we all seek and treasure. And for this exhibition, we invited three celebrated Middle Eastern contemporary visual artists to participate from the faith traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They were each commissioned to produce 5 paintings that interpret Abraham's life for us today, serving really as a guide toward creating cultures of peace and harmony and justice and healing, all as descendants of a shared heritage. The exhibition highlights 5 themes related to Abraham's life that have profound implications for how we live harmoniously together as one family. The 5 themes are living as a pilgrim, meaning we're all on a journey. We have not arrived, and therefore we need others to help us to get to where we need to go. The second theme is welcoming the stranger. The third is sacrificial love. The fourth, compassion. And the fifth, friend of God. And when we're a friend of God, we're a friend of everything that God loves. The basic question this strategic exhibition attempts to answer is, what can Abraham teach us today toward freeing our world from sectarian strife? And in that regard, we have the privilege of having a conversation with the 3 artists today. And they are these artists. They are with us from Jerusalem, San Diego, and Istanbul, no less. Shai Azoulay, who is a Jewish artist from Jerusalem, well known there in his part of the world. Qais Al Sindy, who comes to us from an Assyrian Christian background from Iraq. And then Sinan Hussein, who comes to us from a Muslim background, and who is actually based in Istanbul, also, though, from Iraq. It's a real privilege for us to have all of them with us today. We'll be talking to them in the order of their historical faith tradition, the oldest to the youngest. In other words, Jewish, Christian, and then Muslim. Shai Azoulay. Shai Azoulay studied at the Bezalel Academy of Art and Design, where he received both his BFA and his MFA. Shai has held numerous solo exhibitions and has exhibited in the Tel Aviv Museum, the Frieze Art Fair, and around the world, from Tokyo to Rome to Paris and even New York. He's the recipient of the Marasha Award from the Tel Aviv Museum of Art and the Moses Prize from the Jerusalem Artist House. His works are in renowned collections around the world, and Shai had the privilege of being with us for the opening of the exhibition in Paris, France. Shai, welcome. I believe you're in Jerusalem right now. It's wonderful to have you with us. Shai, can you tell us a little bit about your own background, where you're from and where you grew up?
Well, I was born in Israel, in the north side of Israel. I grew up to a reality of bombs that we had from Lebanon to the north side. And we had kind of a moment that my parents decided we can't live there anymore, and we moved to the desert side of Israel, to the other side, very far. And actually, there I grew up in the desert part of Israel, and I think that it influenced my visual language in a sense.
Now, one thing I notice is that, and we can't really see very clearly on this screen, but you're wearing a hat, I believe, right? Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about the origin of that hat? Because I think it has a lot to do with your own background.
Yarmulke, it's a kippah in Hebrew. You say you're covering your head like everybody is doing to remember that there is something above you.
Yes.
Actually, this is the idea. I'm sorry, what did you ask about it?
The reason I was asking, Shai, is I understand that your own family heritage comes from Morocco.
Yeah.
And often you wear a Moroccan hat.
Yeah, we have it traditionally from Morocco. My dad is coming from Morocco to Israel, and my mother comes from Spain. But in Morocco, we had this kind of yarmulke, this kind of hats, this kind of square head figure. So I'm enjoying having it. It's a nice yarmulke.
Could you give us a little sense of the particular strain of Judaism that you are a member of?
I didn't grow up as a religious person. I grew up in a religious house, but it was very light in a sense. But I had a moment in the age of 30, now I'm 50, that I decided to be religious. And it was a moment that I choose that. And I believe that when you are coming to a religion, you have to choose it. You can't. It's a privilege. You can't do it from your own. You know that somebody is telling you to believe. It's a not. I don't think it's a normal way to do it. So my belief is that actually, as far as you can, you should speak with God directly all the time. Con- have a relation with Him. Speak with Him. Try to listen. Try to have kind of communication in this life, in this journey, because we are in a great, crazy journey in this time of history. So
Mhm.
you have to be very you have to listen very, very hard to understand how to walk and where to walk.
Now, you are associated with the Orthodox uh, aspect of Judaism. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, on the art side, when did you start developing an interest in art?
Well, it came to me very late. I was traveling after the army, and I was somewhere in the east in Thailand, and I did kind of sketching. I was 24, and from the sketching, I had kind of I don't know, very simple to say, I had kind of enlightenment. And then I felt that, okay, this is what I want to do. This is the nearest thing to me. And from that moment on, I came back to Israel. I made my first painting. With them, I went to examine in the art academy, and the journey started from there. But it's actually, I never studied art before when I was young or something like that. I was doing it, but I never studied. So when I came to the art academy, it was for me the moment that everything happened in this
Okay.
sense.
Interesting. Now, quite a while back, about now 2 years,
Yeah.
I contacted you. I invited you to participate in this Abraham exhibition. What was your initial reaction when I invited you to be part of it?
I remember your message. I think it was a kind of a WhatsApp message because we had the relation before. I did the bridge exhibition, and I knew you and your organization before, and you told me this idea. And now when I'm looking at it, and it's like few years back, and now I see we're almost in the end of it. It was something that I couldn't imagine how far it will go and be. Only you can imagine. You made it. Like, you made the journey. You made the plans. You took the paintings. You found the places. You were messaging us all the time. So I think that it was your vision, and it took me time to understand your vision. And I'm so privileged to be part of this triple exhibition, to be part of this kind of I don't know, the way that we are trying to communicate, to make bridges to each other, to make love in a good sense, with all this fire and war around. So I feel that I'm privileged that I can take my art and bring it to a very different stage.
Hmm. In that sense, Shai, could you share a little bit about why you think this particular exhibition that's focusing on Avraham is so important for us at this moment in time?
I think that with all this COVID and everything that is happening beside COVID, everyone is asking himself, what do I do, what I'm doing in this world? Like, what do I want to do in this world? And it takes everyone, even if you're not a believer, to his basic rules, to his basic elements, to his basic feelings. And I think Abraham is a basic thing. It's a start. And if you're going back to Abraham, you know that you are going to the start and you are searching yourself there.
Hmm.
And this is I think it's a movement for everyone, everywhere. We are everybody's going to do a restart, to ask, how do I'm continuing? If this world is the world that I want to be in, How do I want to keep myself in this world? What do I want to give to this world?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, we have one of your paintings that we're going to show here, and it's titled Living as a Pilgrim. It's on the first theme that's in the exhibition. And I was wondering if you could share a little bit with us to kind of bring it to life for us, what you were
Yeah.
attempting to do in that painting, and really what the message you want communicated through that particular artwork is.
I think that when you are doing art, especially when you are doing art and when you are religious, you have to have a vision all the time. You have to look somewhere that you even don't see the light somewhere, but you have to look straight there and to hope that you have light somewhere there. And this painting is about it. It's about this figure that is standing in this hill, and this figure is looking somewhere to the to the horizon, and you are looking with this figure as well. And I took it from from the romantic work of Caspar David Friedrich from the 1812, and I feel that it's kind of it's very romantic to see things like that, to be on the hill and to look back in the to the nature or something like that, and to imagine. But when you are a believer, you have to be in the stage. You have to be in the stage of looking at somewhere and believing that this place is part of you. This place you will go there. Yeah, this place is the track that you have to take.
Mm. I thought I would read what you wrote about this particular work, and it echoes some of what you just said. You wrote, I had David Caspar Friedrich's famous painting of the Romantic period, Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog, in mind while creating this work. Abraham, standing high on a hill, is looking out at the land through which he will be journeying. So much seems to be like a mirage, where there is promise, but the vision is foggy. Not everything is clear. The only way forward is to simply believe a concept that cannot exist only in the mind, but beyond it. As a pilgrim, Abraham has to journey out in faith, forging ahead, knowing that he will need others along the way. It's beautiful,
Yeah,
Shai.
yeah.
Now, in that sense, in your experience through this exhibition, has it helped you in personally in looking a little bit more broadly and generously and openly to other faith traditions?
Of course, all the time. I think that if you are open to yourself, you have to be open to the others. And I'm saying again, I had the privilege to be part of this project, to be part of this exhibition, to meet these great two other artists, and to meet you, and to understand that we can create a language, we can share a language, we can play with the language. And art, it's like, when you are an artist, you are staying in your studio and you're doing your thing, and it's like very, it's not simple to communicate with others. But when the painting is done, then you can give it to something. And I feel that I gave those painting, and I was doing those painting for this cause, and I'm really thanking God for this opportunity.
Mm. Well, it's a privilege to have you as part of this exhibition that has traveled widely right now. One of the things I thought I would share is that in selecting these three artists, including yourself, Shai, we had some criteria in mind. One was that they be premier artists of international renown, and all of these are award-winning artists and highly regarded in international art circles. The other thing, which you'll see later when you get the virtual tour, is we were really focused on making sure their artwork styles flowed seamlessly together in a joint exhibition, that each other's artistic approach would complement the others. And then thirdly, and this is what I wanted to really emphasize right now, is that each of the artists really embodied the spirit of this exhibition, the spirit of Abraham, if you will, in welcoming the stranger, and embracing the other. Shai, it's a real joy to have you part of this exhibition. And it next shows in Hartford, Connecticut. So I don't know if
I won't be there, but I will send my love.
I think COVID is throwing a wrench in the initial plans because we were all scheduled to be there in Hartford for the grand finale, if you will. So thank you, Shai.
Thank you so much.
Very much. Next, and it's the middle child. If Shai is the firstborn in the family reunion, we have the middle child now, Qais Al Sindy. Qais was born in Baghdad, Iraq in 1967. He has a BSc degree in engineering, as well as a BFA and an MFA from the Academy of Fine Arts in Baghdad at Baghdad University. In Amman, Jordan, where he lived for 4 years, Qais taught art in architectural engineering at the University of Applied Science. He has exhibited around the world on themes related to humanity, and culture, and civilization. And he has won numerous awards, distinguished awards for his artwork. He lives in San Diego, and he's now actually a U.S. citizen. Qais was with us for the opening in Edinburgh, Scotland, as well as Omaha, Nebraska, Jacksonville, Florida, and most recently in Lander, Wyoming. Qais, it's wonderful to have you with us here. Thanks for being with us here today.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about your own background, Qais. I know you grew up in Iraq.
Yes, I grew up in Baghdad in Iraq, and I studied engineering. And I was number 3 after I graduated from the engineering. And then I realized that I am not in the specific career that I want to be specialized in. That's why I quit to art field and started to study art at the Academy of Fine Art in Baghdad. And it was that in the studies, the evening studies, then I got my MFA, the Master of Fine Art, in 2003. The coincidence that the time of my graduation of preparing for my master degree, it was at the same time of invasion of Iraq, and the time that the extremists appear like everywhere in Iraq. And I was doing a lot of murals and like very huge artworks on the facade on the College of Fine Art, and also like some big walls. And you know, we as artists, we are free like to represent ourselves and the theme, like media, figures, and everything. And one of my paintings was semi-nude dancers on the wall of Fine Art of the college. And I saw that some fundamentalists came and they like wiped up that piece of art. And I realized that it's the time that I have to turn away, because some extremists will see like this kind of art like a taboo or haram. That's why I decided to leave Iraq and began a new stage of my life in Jordan as a temporary time. I was hoping that I may go back to Iraq when the situation will improve back again. But unfortunately, the sectarian violence erupted like at a very high range. And we, the Christian as a minority, we caught in the middle. And we were like the fuel of such word of people who judge other people based on their denominational affiliation. But still, like when I left Iraq, but Iraq didn't leave me.
I love that. You left Iraq, but Iraq didn't leave you.
Yeah.
Now, Qais, you come from a very historic Christian background.
Yes.
You have been in Iraq, not since the time of Abraham as Christians, but very far back, almost as far back as Christianity goes.
Yes.
And you've shared some wonderful stories about your grandfather.
Yes.
In old Iraq and the
Yes.
beautiful harmony that existed. Can you share a little bit about just some of your own family heritage in terms of interreligious harmony?
Yes, this is a story I heard from my father, who conveyed from his grandfather. My grandfather has had used to have like a wholesale store in like one of very commercial neighborhood in Baghdad, and his neighbors were one Muslim and the other one is Jewish. The time that the Jewish were like living peacefully in Baghdad, they were not displaced yet, and they used the three guys here, my grandfather and his two friends, like to have their breakfast at the same time. I think like very early morning. And the point is, they kept like laughing at each other because each one like certain type of egg when they eat. My father explained to me that his father were dipping in the same plate, in the same pot, living like dipping at the same plate and eating from the same meal. Can you imagine this? Like when three pans and it's the same plate, that means we are sharing like some kind of understanding and love and appreciation of each other. And this story kept in my mind, and I said, why the things in Iraq, especially in the chronicle, like contemporary chronicle, what happened here in Iraq is changed dramatically. Why is these things like deteriorated dramatically? Even like in the same faith, you see there is a conflict, there is a clash, even in the same faith, as we see here now, like the post-war, like after 2003. And I think this is the big motivation that lead me like to be part of this extraordinary exhibition.
Mm. I love that image, Qais, of your grandfather and his Muslim and Jewish friend all eating. I think they were scrambled eggs or something, weren't they, from
Yes.
the same plate? That's a
Yes.
beautiful image, I think, for us to take. When
Yes.
I contacted you, and we actually knew each other before this exhibition, but when I contacted you about participating in this exhibition, I'd love to know your initial reaction and why you said yes and why you think it's important.
Before I answer this question, I will tell you something briefly about the topic of my master degree thesis. It was about the religious paintings in all churches and monasteries in Iraq, and that like I had to drive by myself to all the governorate cities, provinces in Iraq to see and examine all these churches, all the governorates and the Nasiriyah, and where Ur is now there, and it's the origin of our father Abraham. I visited that city too. And when you asked me to be part of this exhibition, you took me back to the places that I explored during my long trip to have a full documentary about the religious and Christian, the early Christian art in Iraq. And I thought also it's a good time to have a connection with the other faiths, especially at this time with this social media that we have, that with all these great connections through the social media that we have, but still we are disconnected, as you see now what's happening like in the other part of the world. And also I was encouraged to be and privileged to be in this exhibition, especially after the other project, the bridge, the bridges. Like Paul, you made me, every time I see a bridge, I remember that exhibition. Every time I see a bridge, I have to take photos of that bridge. And these bridges that we need, it's as I said in my previous meetings, when somebody like throw a stone to you, you have to collect these stones, either like to build a wall to keep him away or build a bridge. And I believe that Abraham, this very great project, is a very vital approach to harmonize between the people in different faiths.
Now, you've had the privilege of being at more openings than the other artists, as you're based here in North America.
Yes.
As I mentioned, you've actually been in Omaha and Jacksonville,
Yes.
Wyoming, here in the United States. Any surprises that you've experienced these are very diverse,
Yes.
cities,
Yes.
from your experience?
Yes. There is something all of us realize, that the stereotyping, the precipitations, or the cliche. I realized that myself and other people, all the crowd who came to our exhibitions, they have the stereotype of the people who come from the other part of the world, and these accumulated in their mind based on the media, the press, anything. And this exhibition is the way to destroy these stereotyping, and start to give a new idea from the people who come from the other part of the world, like from their cultures, background, heritage, and everything. And this is what made me very pleased to be participant in this show, to share the stories from my homeland, and also to listen the stories of the other people who are attending our shows.
Yeah, I love your focus on art as it destroys the stereotypes.
Yes.
The surrealist painter from Egypt, the late surrealist painter Ramses Yunan, has this wonderful line saying that art is the means of destroying our way of thinking and behaving.
Yes.
And it does have that power.
Yes.
Now, I want to look at one of your paintings, and I think we're going to choose Living as a Pilgrim as well, since Shai also spoke about his painting, that particular theme. It's really the first pillar, if you will, that the exhibition is built on. Can you tell us a little bit about what was behind the creation of this painting, and really what you want to communicate through it?
The major point that motivates me to do this painting, that all of us, I think the majority of us, are travelers. We are either exiles, refugees, asylees, immigrants, travelers, displaced, you just name it. And that means you are moving from the point A to the point B. What makes you move? Either you are voluntarily or involuntarily that you moved. Either that you are going to look for the better opportunities for your life, or you are forced to leave, or you are running away from something, or you are escaping from something. And that I'm here because, as a refugee here, I came to the United States because of the sectarian tension that happened in my homeland. Here, Abraham is one of the very ancient and old travelers that moved from Nasiriyah, which is a governorate around 200 kilometers south of Baghdad, and he moved to the land that the God promised him to. We see that Abraham here is holding a sheep over his shoulders. This symbolizes that he is a pastor and he is a shepherd. Here also we see Zechariah, which is one of the Sumerian ancient temples, over his head. That I wanted to say here that this is a sign that he is carrying his country over his head. And regarding the cloak, you see here the brown cloak. This is the garment of Abraham. I asked one of my friends to find a cloak or a long coat of one of the shepherds in Nasiriyah and send it to me. And when I received this cloak, I pasted it on the surface of the canvas, just to give the authenticity that this man is from my country, is from Mesopotamia, the land between the two rivers. I make the painting in experiential style, and also I gave I gave it, the spirit of the Sumerian relief that the ancient Sumerian artists used to depict the figures at that time. And this is my message about Abraham. He's a traveler, he's an immigrant, he is exiled, and he's representing, like each one of us, each case that we have in our life that we kept in our memories that led us to to examine the future and keep living in the past with the memories that we have from our origins.
It's beautiful, Qais.
Thank you.
I believe in all 5 of your paintings in this exhibition, you have representation with a piece of that cloak.
Yes.
That was taken from an old Nasrian shepherd there in Iraq. And what's interesting is to see how many times people have put their nose up.
Smelling that piece.
Smelling the cloak, that material.
Yeah. Do you know what made them smell that piece?
What is that?
Yeah, because in each introductory speech that I had before the exhibition opening, I told them the truth about that this piece of cloth, this cloak, was not washed, no laundry, no washed, and I asked the people who delivered to me to keep it with its sweat, its dust, its dirt, and everything, and the people wanted to smell this smell, this fragrance, if I may say, of that desert, to smelling the spirit of Abraham. Even after the epidemic, it's not healthy to go to smell from the same piece. Like many people lined up, you remember, and they were smelling, even after the COVID, they're smelling from the same piece of art to feel something maybe they didn't felt before by doing so.
Yeah, I think there's very much an experiential dimension as they get close to that when they put their nose up to it, and we have some wonderful photographs of people doing that. And of course, I've seen some photographs of them kind of looking both ways afterwards because they didn't know if they were going to get in trouble or not by putting their nose up.
I remember,
with a painting. But
I like this interaction of the crowd, yes, very much.
There is that interactive element. That's true.
Yeah.
Thank you, Qais. It's wonderful to have you with us. It's a real privilege, and it's been wonderful to have had you at so many openings as well.
My pleasure.
So we've heard from the firstborn, we've heard from the middle child in this family get-together. I have the privilege of introducing the youngest child, Sinan Hussein. Sinan was born in 1977. His artistic work extends from really the vision of his Mesopotamian ancestors and that vast civilization and rich history to very much the challenging present. Sinan obtained his BFA at the University of Fine Arts in Baghdad, and soon after graduation in 2004, he left Baghdad because of the war and the sectarian violence there that almost ended his life 3 different times. He found refuge in Kuwait and eventually in the United States, and he's now also a U.S. citizen, but he lives in Istanbul. He's participated in many highly acclaimed solo and group exhibitions in the Middle East, in Europe, and the United States, and his art is wonderfully whimsical. He was actually with us for the grand opening in Rome, Italy, of this exhibition in May of 2019. Sinan, it's wonderful to have you with us. Thanks for joining us today from Istanbul.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sinan, can you tell us a little bit about your own background growing up? And yes.
Yes. Yeah. I was born in Baghdad, in Iraq. You know that. That is the very traditional religious and is the big family my family origin from the west of Iraq, and I grew. Yeah. And you know, my family is the big family, and it is named Ad-Dulaimi. Ad-Dulaimi is that they live in Iraq. Also, they live in Baghdad. Also, they live in the east. Okay. Also, they live in the south and north. Okay. But our family, they in Baghdad, okay, because that I growing in Baghdad.
So Sinan, can you tell me a little bit about your religious background and growing up?
Yes. As I commented earlier, I was raised in a very religious family. How is loved all Islamic celebration as the kids. Ramadan and the fasting and going to mosque is the happy memory. And it's the very joyous time of the year. My dad used to tell us stories about all prophets and traditional introduce me to Abrahamic and religions. Not only this, but it was traditional into the most important 5 pearls of Islam. We consider ourselves as a Sufi's family because my grandfather he's come from Sufi's family, and it's the big family. They follow this until now.
So from a Sufi orientation,
yes.
Are you a Sunni or Shia background, Sinan? I think you just froze there for a few moments.
Sunni background.
Sunni background, okay.
Yeah, Sunni background, because it's the all Sufis, it's Sunni background.
Okay. Now, tell me how you got interested in the arts.
When I was 14, I started painting started the sketch. I paint a lot of my family, my friends, in the street. I go out in the street. I paint landscape outside, and after that, I go to the college, and I finish college 4 years until the war. And after war, I go to the Jordan is the first step, and after that to Kuwait. I live in Kuwait a long time, 5 years, and in America.
Okay.
And
okay.
I stay in America, 8 years.
Yes.
Yeah. After that, I'm now here in Istanbul.
Your father was an artist and a musician, I believe.
Yes, my father, he's artist also, and also my uncle, also artist, and my I have a lot in my family is the artist, but they paint just for ourselves, not for they're not showing to people. They just drawing and they put it in the house and that's it. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a creative family. That's wonderful.
Yes. Thank you.
I'd like to highlight one of your paintings, also the Living as a Pilgrim piece, and ask you to share a little bit about it with us. I want to say that Sinan's work in this exhibition is full of mystical, imaginative symbolism. And I cannot tell you, Sinan, how many times people have asked me, so what is going on in this painting? And what does this represent? And what is he trying to say? And this will be a good example for our viewers to see your unique style. So tell us a little bit about Living as a Pilgrim, the piece, the artwork that you did for this exhibition.
You mean I'm talking about all of my painting?
No, just the first one, and I know they're going to put it up now on the screen as well.
Yes.
The first one. Let's see. There we go. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. This one to show. It's to me, and it's very special because it is the first one of the Abrahamic series. It means the beginnings to me and breath of the first step of the Abraham's promise to Allah or to God. The symbol is used in this painting is the very unique. Abraham is depicted to have the Kaaba in his head or inside head, because God ordered him to build the Kaaba as a house for the God or Allah. I use some symbols in the painting. I put glass blue, okay, or represent the context for protections with the Hajar to give his son Ismail.
Mm-hmm.
And also Abraham, I put it as the black stone because Allah said said Jibreel to send to Abraham a black stone and put it in the Kaaba. Okay, and it is different story. Some people they talking about is the black stone. It is coming from Adam, and Adam put it in the India, and after that, when Jibreel come in, bring from Indian to Abraham to put it in the Kaaba.
Okay.
But it is different story. Is the one story is that because black stone now in the Kaaba, and is that everybody when they go to Kaaba they touch this black stone, and they said is that maybe Allah like clean.
I think your connection
when
is
they touch this stone, and because that I put it as this stone in the head on the head Abraham.
Thank you. I was going to ask if you could put we can put the painting back up. I'm going to read what Sinan wrote. This is what you wrote, Sinan, and I think it summarizes what you just shared with us very powerfully. This painting all takes place in the imagination. In this painting, I show Abraham and Sarah thinking about their life of continual journey, which leads them as far away as Egypt, highlighted by the pyramids in the upper left. Abraham is known as the first monotheist, and in the background, idols are being destroyed. The words coming out of his mouth are in Arabic, jumbled, but invoking a prayer about God and the first prophet, Abraham. I have painted the symbol of pilgrimage in Islam, the black box-shaped Kaaba in Mecca, upon Abraham's head. And Abraham is thinking about the concept of pilgrimage. The blue glove he is holding represents positive energy, just as the Islamic folk symbols of Fatima's hand or the evil eye, which are signs of protection and the desire for goodness in life, are traditionally depicted in blue. Together, Abraham and Sarah are thinking about so many things, both the joys and hardships of life's journey. Sarah is specifically thinking about not being able to have a child. The touch of their hands represents an intimate gesture. They have contact, but no child, signified by the wearing of gloves. The glass box around Sarah's head is representative of her imagination and of all she is processing and thinking about. God, the journey they are on, her maid servant Hagar, her deep longing for a child. And in her arms, she is holding the soul of a child, the child she is longing for, which is in the color yellow, representing God's breath or God's presence. Sinan, thank you for spending that time with us. It's wonderful to have you with us from as far away as Istanbul today.
Thank you so
And
much.
thank you for adding this magical component to all of your paintings, which have been deeply appreciated throughout this tour.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for Qais. Thank you for Shai. Thank you for everybody.
Thank you, Sinan. I now have the privilege of turning this over to Reverend Gregory Hahn of the Interfaith Ministries of Greater Houston. We have had throughout this tour a lot of docents, those who actually give tours throughout the exhibition, both sur place, meaning in person, or also virtually. We have yet to encounter a more stupendous docent than Greg. So Greg, over to you to show us the exhibition.
Bishop Chandler, it's a pleasure, and it's been also an honor and a pleasure for Interfaith Ministries to work with you and with Caravan. Let's go ahead and take a look right into the exhibit. Well, I'll give just a couple of introductory thoughts. Through our direct service work at Interfaith Ministries, we work with Meals on Wheels. We're one of the largest Meals on Wheels programs in the country, and our Refugee Services and Volunteer Houston, we seek to focus on the strength of shared beliefs. When we were approached by Caravan back in 2019 to be part of the traveling exhibit, and we were supposed to host in person in April of 2020, we of course jumped at the opportunity. But the COVID restrictions meant that we had to that we needed to postpone, as the exhibit needed to stop its in-person travel in, I believe, February of 2020. But we didn't want to postpone indefinitely. We certainly didn't want to cancel. So we worked with Caravan to create a virtual gallery so we could reschedule for a month-long virtual exhibit with a host of events. And I think it went really, really well. So of course, I would commend to you to see, if possible, these paintings in person. But I'm looking forward to now this opportunity to show you the virtual gallery and to see all 15 of the paintings kind of in their entirety. So as we go in, you can see that it is and you can also see this exhibit for yourself, this virtual gallery for yourself at oncaravan.org. And as you come in, you can see that it's a very tasteful, very simply laid out room, so that the paintings themselves really can take center stage. And as we turn around, you'll see that they are in 15 paintings in groups of 3 according to their theme. We'll just stop here very quickly that if you're in the virtual gallery, you can have an introduction to the 3 artists. And as we turn, there's a kind of a placard here with introductory information as well. But we'll come back to the center and we'll start with that first trio that we started with, and I'll move through them relatively quickly because we heard such wonderful exposition of these three pieces of art from our artists. But with the virtual gallery, you can really get up close here. So we can take a look again, the one that Sinan Hussein just explained to us. And these three, again, are living as a pilgrim. Besides what Sinan and Bishop Chandler mentioned with these highlights, I think it's really important to consider the role of the imagination in pilgrimage. And I love that that Sinan's is the first of the trio in that pilgrimages begin with the unknown. Pilgrimages begin with the what if. Pilgrimages begin with the potential. And so with Abraham and Sarah speaking about what could be, what may be along on their journey, that's a good reminder to us as well as pilgrims that that pilgrimage requires, in many cases, a leap of faith. And I think we'll see that as well in Shai Azoulay's. One of the many things, and one of the things I'll do is I will zoom in as closely as possible, and you can see that there is a difference in texture using that the way that that Qais Al Sindy has used the cloak and incorporated in it, and you'll be able to see those as well. The other thing that we'll be able to see through this brief gallery is that the commonalities with the artist's style and the symbols that they use. You'll see, for an example, in some one of the other pieces of art, how Qais Al Sindy uses the beard to sort of conceal intentionally the face, but also that the beard gives it a contour as well. Jesus as the Good Shepherd is a very common and well understood theme within Christianity. And both Bishop Chandler and Qais Al Sindy mentioned as well that it's also the idea of carrying one's homeland. And that is a very poignant theme for us at Interfaith Ministries, as we do a lot of refugee resettlement working with Episcopal Migration Ministries. And as we turn on the news and see, particularly with current events in Afghanistan, the movement of people, the forced movement of people, people seeking refuge. So the idea of one carrying one's homeland is an important one, not only to Abraham, but to a lot of work we do at Interfaith Ministries. And of course, we heard Shai Azoulay talk about and share about living as a pilgrim as well. There's a wonderful, in Hebrew, in Genesis 12, when God tells Abram at that point to go, the verb is lech lecha. It means literally it's an imperative to go. And so these three paintings of carrying our home, of the urge to go, and the imagination that it sometimes takes to take that first step out, I think are really important and wonderful themes as we highlight and look at this first theme of living as a pilgrim. Turning to our next trio, and I'll back out and you can kind of see them, and you can see some similarities even from a distance. That this next theme is welcoming the stranger, which is something that Abraham was well known for. And again, moving from left to right, we begin with Sinan Hussein. You can see some similarities in the use of color and the way that Hussein creates people, and some of the coloration, and we'll also get introduced to some of his imagery as well. He says a little bit about this. My paintings frequently blend the contemporary with the historical, and in this painting, Abraham and Sarah are welcoming Ishmael into their lives. Outside of Islam, Ishmael is often viewed as secondary and therefore not universally accepted. So in this painting, this is Ishmael, the son is representative of the other. You can see also usages, as we saw before, the use of boots and of gloves, and particularly the use of a green glove, and green having a positive connotation within Islam. And you can see, and this will not be the last time that you will see this, a traffic cone. And similar to traffic cones setting off something you may see in the road as something to be careful of, to be wary of, the cone also shows us, as this light from above comes streaming down onto Ishmael, that this is something special. This is a time that is holy, that is literally set apart, that is special. And the fantastical creatures you see above are spirits, and Hussein says they can take a variety of forms. They're not bounded by a particular form or shape, as they also are there in celebration of the welcoming of the stranger, of the son Ishmael. As we move over, and the middle is always Qais Al Sindy, and you can see here, and I will just zoom in briefly, the use of the shepherd's cloak again. This painting is of three strangers, and in many cases, we need to see ourselves. None of the three are the host. We are the host. And the three cups of tea there are equal helpings of hospitality to these three guests. I always appreciate as well in Qais Al Sindy's work that he provides enough detail in the faces that they're definitely people, but that they could be most anybody. They could be male or female. They could be from a variety of countries of origin or ethnicities. And for us, particularly at Interfaith Ministries with our Meals on Wheels program, the idea of providing hospitality, particularly in the form of food, is very important. You may notice as well, and it's always important when you take a look at a piece of art to ask yourself, where is your eye drawn to? And your eye may have seen in the distance a figure. And you can decide for yourself, and again, this is one of the wonderful things about art, whether that is a person who's coming or a person who's going. But the message is for sure that on any given day, one of these three strangers to whom we have provided hospitality will be gone, and another will take that person's place as we continue to hear that call to welcome the stranger with hospitality. And then finally, let's slide over. Oops. Let's slide over to Shai Azoulay's. In this one in particular, we see Azoulay's a certain lightness in I think in his work, and it's also amazing that a piece of art that is static, that once it's finished, it's there on the wall, also provides a sense of movement. And you can think about your eye. Can get a little bit closer. Your eye making sort of a journey across these three episodes. Perhaps this is the Abraham in the middle, showing strangers around. Maybe the bottom, this is the Abraham teaching or sharing. And above is the Abraham sort of on a flight of fancy or imagination. But I always appreciate how my eye is is invited to move through these three sort of mini episodes within the larger painting, as we, through these three paintings, are taught a little bit more about what it means to welcome the stranger. Turning to perhaps one of the more complex themes, we turn to sacrificial love. And the idea, particularly, two of the pieces of art focus on the call or the challenge of sacrificing the son. In Hebrew, it's called the story is called the Akedah, which means the binding, which harkens to the fact that Abraham needed to bind his son Isaac. Let's go ahead and start again with Sinan Hussein and the richness of the imagery that he uses. There is a lot that goes on here. Let me just get that. There we go. Let me share a little bit about what Sinan says about this piece. Here I've painted Abraham sacrificing his beloved son Ishmael. In the Quran, the story is told as a dream, not as something that actually happened. Although it does not specifically name the son, our tradition holds it is Ishmael, expressing Abraham's true sacrificial love. Even today, whenever something evil is happening, as a religious fundamentalist group doing evil, black is often worn, and you can see the black that is used there on the right-hand side. You can see as well within the image of the ram that will take the place of the son, a picture of the sun, and you can see as well that traffic cones are again used to symbolize that this is an event that is set apart and special. We'll move over to Qais Al Sindy's, and again, you can see here on the right side the use of the shepherd's cloak. And Qais Al Sindy says that this one, Sacrificial Love, is subtitled "He is Yours," and he says this: one of the main stories in the life of Abraham is the sacrifice of Isaac. God commanded Abraham to offer his son as a sacrifice. As I meditated on this story, I found it difficult to capture Abraham's expression. This is why I do not reveal his eyes as the painting. As such, an extraordinary sacrifice required full obedience. Abraham was promised numerous descendants, and thus the short palm tree symbolizes that everything is small compared to sacrificial love. And finally, in this trio, Shai Azoulay takes a little different approach, and he paints a circle dance. And he paints, and I'll just read a little bit about what he says about this one. I show the patriarch Abraham on a flying carpet observing a large circle dance that illustrates the diversity of the world. Circle dancing is very important across many traditions. And what I often point out to with this painting is that in a circle, everyone has a level of equality. And maybe the sacrificial love that we need to show is that if we give just a little bit of ourselves, we all can maybe come together on more even ground, on more equal ground, on all and just ground as well. I often point out as well that circle dancing can be messy. And so I often point out it's similar to community. A circle dance, you may be with partners where your legs are quite coordinated and things are in sync. But maybe down here you can see that sometimes your legs can get crossed and a little bit messy. And so sacrificial love, at least that I see in Azoulay's painting here, is symbolic of sacrificial community and the community in which we all live. And so we take a look at these three paintings and we have different aspects of this notion of sacrificial love, of the love that Abraham showed and was shown as well. We'll move over to our third trio of the compassionate. And we'll focus in here on Sinan Hussein's. And I'll get a little bit closer here. Hussein focuses on the compassionate by focusing on the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And you can see Abraham, he is fleeing the evil, fleeing the lack of hospitality, fleeing the horrors of Sodom and Gomorrah. And you can see that it has distorted these faces. It has distorted these shapes. It has made grotesque the faces, and you can see them highlighted in the sort of masks. But I think it's important to see as well that what does Abraham do? He doesn't turn to curse the people, but he's looking up to the sky, asking both for a blessing and I would say also forgiveness, as he is fleeing the distortion of love, the distortion of hospitality that he is fleeing from Sodom and Gomorrah. And again, we see in the lower left-hand corner the traffic cone, symbolizing that this is time and space set apart for divine purpose. I'm going to back out and actually come at Qais Al Sindy's from a distance, and helpful that when you are in a gallery to not just perhaps run up to a piece of art, because artwork has different information it can show you and different story and a different message that it can show you from afar and then when you get closer. And when I see this one of the compassionate that Al Sindy painted, I see the contours of a mountain, something that shows stability, something that shows a sense of firmness, something that's not going to move. But as we get closer, we can see that the detail starts to come out. We can see again pieces of the cloak both around Abraham's shoulders and like almost as a blanket. And his arm is almost unnaturally long, but long enough to surround the three children that I would say, yes, are the three children of the Abrahamic traditions. But in many of our conversations we hosted over the month of the exhibit, we also used the Abrahamic message as a launching point of inclusion of all religious traditions. As you can see that Abraham, the compassionate one, has shown compassion and protection to his three children. And what's interesting is he's having a dream, and Abraham is sharing a sort of a dream about something that happened, and it was something harrowing, and that he was shown something, and the thing that he's trying to remember is something that I personally wouldn't want to remember. But he has such a serene look on his face that he's trying to remember this event with a sense of calmness, a sense of peace. And so I think that's a reminder to us that it's not only about the present, but also the past, that we can try to bless not just the present, but our past memories with compassion as well. Let's back up. I'm going to turn, and we're going to take a look at our final three paintings. And this is a friend of God. And as Bishop Chandler mentioned, a friend of God is a friend to all. And these are just three wonderful paintings. We'll take a look at this painting here, again, Sinan Hussein's. You can see a variety of the similar images, the similar symbolism, and the similar colors. And he says of this one, and it's just his wording about this is very, very just wonderful. The painting is a celebration of life. All the earth, people, creatures, vegetation, and animals come together. In this glorious embrace of all things, Abraham's green glove symbolized God's endorsement and pleasure. Everything is swimming around Abraham as he blesses all of creation. And again, we can create these fantastical images. Even a dog and a cat have the same face as they have been brought together. And even a pinkish horse and these various spirits and guardians that are celebrating the kind of the gloriousness of Abraham as a friend of God. Moving over, Qais Al Sindy says about this one. One of the critical issues in our world today is the struggle to exist in a global economy. The struggle to thrive often weakens the universal values of love between peoples. In this painting, I depict Abraham at the center of a circular table, sitting among friends of different ethnic and religious origins. The friendship leads them to share the one apple they have been given. I strongly believe that with positive dialogue and well-intentioned conversation, the iceberg that represents our differences will be melted away. And then finally, let's take a look at a friend of God. And this is the painting that we used at Interfaith Ministries as the painting that we used in our collateral as we were telling people about it. And I often would ask people, do you see the figures falling into the hands or out of the hands? And it's a both and. Perhaps they're being brought in a sign of care, but they're also being released as a blessing. And Azoulay says this: my painting is a metaphor of the famous blessing that says, when you open your hands to all, everything you need comes to you. Above Abraham's hands, I've painted floating figures like angels, symbolizing God's blessings on those who are generous in spirit to all. And there we have our exhibit, Abraham out of one many. I'll give one final spin as we've come through the themes of living as a pilgrim, welcoming the stranger, sacrificial love, the compassionate, and finally, a friend of God. Thank you for this opportunity to share this exhibit, this virtual exhibit. Again, you can find it on oncaravan.org. We really appreciate at Interfaith Ministries, our partnership with Caravan. We had a wonderful month, and we're also so pleased to see that the spirit of Abraham out of one many lives on. Thank you. I think I'll turn it back to Bishop Chandler for some closing words.
Thank you, Greg, for that marvelous tour through the exhibition. We profoundly believe that artists can lead the way. With their embrace of greater tolerance than others, artists are naturally change agents and therefore can provide new pathways of understanding that transcends borders and how one sees the other. And there's no question, I think, that the power of creativity counteracts any type of demonization of the other. I think our day calls for a whole new kind of movement, not of belief, not of religious unity, but one, quite simply, that builds on what we hold in common. And we are too often blinded by really the constant illumination of our differences that we can't see all that we have in common. As the early 20th century Lebanese poet, artist, and mystic Khalil Gibran, who profoundly bridged between the creeds of East and West, so beautifully said, "I love you when you bow in your mosque, kneel in your temple, or pray in your church. For you and I are children of one religion, and it is God's Spirit." I thought I'd close with some thoughts from two artists, thoughts that are very apropos, I think, to the spirit of this exhibition. The first is from Leonard Bernstein, the renowned late Jewish composer and conductor, highlighting the transformative power of art. He wrote, "The point is, art never stopped a war. That was never its function. Art cannot change events, but it can change people. It can affect people so that they are changed, and then they act in a way that may affect the course of events by the way they behave and the way they think." And then secondly, perhaps no words resonate better with the spirit of this exhibition than the words of that profound Dutch artist, Vincent van Gogh. He wrote, "The more I think it over, the more I feel that there is nothing more truly artistic than to love people." Thank you for this opportunity of sharing this really profound exhibition. I want to thank the artists for participating today from their various locations around the world. I want to thank Reverend Gregory Hahn for a marvelous tour and for Interfaith Ministries of Greater Houston and their partnership in all of this. And then, of course, especially the Aga Khan Council for Central United States and Ismaili TV. Thank you.